Howdy folks, today we got some stuff to talk about. This headphone in the video is the Tigerism Octave, which clearly is some type of Chinese translation of American words. A little weird. Tigerism, yeah. This is the Octave. It's a one dynamic driver. That particular dynamic driver that you see on video is the same driver that's in the Dark Magician, which is this headphone right here. That's why I pulled that out on video. Also, that is the same driver in the XSL X1. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. That's why I pulled those out on video, just to show. This particular pair I got, and quite honestly, I didn't like them at all, so I decided to retune them immediately. And yeah, basically there was something I didn't notice when I first started listening to them, which is that one of the sides was a little bit off. And as I started graphing it, I realized, well, that's actually way off. And so this particular set ended up being torn apart. I wanted to see all of the things about it so that I could figure out how to modify it correctly. This driver is the DM driver. It just is. It might be some type of revision or something, but over here we can see that driver itself is a two-stage, and you're going like, well, okay, so I lost, I took it apart and lost the internals. They're somewhere, but I can't find them, but I took pictures. So let's go ahead and flip over to some pictures, which will give a little bit more of information about what's going on here. Let's see here. All right, too many things on the screen. First off, right over here, we have the graph that I got off of this original pair. And just right away, we can see that from this graph, we have very little mid-bass. It's like a couple dB at 200. It's scooped out, and then we have just basically a bass shelf. Very little mids and mid-bass in this area. Then we have a very sharp peak at about 2.2K. And a slow slope downwards. And quite frankly, I mean, graphs or whatever, but listening to this, I don't like it. I don't like it at all. Now here's the elephant in the room, which is that I don't actually think that this is what folks are going to be getting, this graph. Because immediately after I got mine, Paul Wasabi got his and graphed his, and it's like, that's this graph. And just looking at that, I don't think there's a possibility that that's the same headphone. Now, I do a close mic'd version for my graphs. So it's basically inserting it deeper into the coupler compared to what I think Paul is doing to get the 8K peak. I'm doing that because I need to tune things, and that 8K peak screws me up and I can't see the treble area. But these are not the same graphs, if you ask me. There is a hell of a lot more bass on Paul's set, which of course is not modified, compared to mine. More mid-bass and everything else. So let's take let's take the bottom of the mids right here, like the lowest part of this dip here. And as it starts to go up, we're starting to go up at like 500, just a hair. By 400, we're up like a dB. 300, we're up a few. 200, we're up a lot more. What is that, like 4 or 5? And if we flip over to my graph, 500 is smack in the, like that's the lowest part of the mid range of the graph. 400 is basically the same. 300 is like maybe a dB or two, and then 200 is up like a couple dB maybe. But then, you know, if we look over here, I don't know, this just, the entire slope of the pinna gain area looks completely different than mine. And also the mid bass. And also that, like, you could kind of tell that my copy was more focused in the super subs, like 20 hertz, and Paul's is like the top of the bass curve is like, I don't know, maybe 32 hertz. So clearly there's some differences going on here. I'm pretty sure they retuned it. They just had to have. Never mind coupler differences, that can't be the same headphone. So then my impressions are like, well, they're what I heard. I'll talk about those, I'll just talk about my impressions right now. So what do we got? We got a 10 millimeter dynamic driver, also been listed as 10.2 millimeters. Why? I don't know. Maybe to throw people off the trail of what it actually is. I have no clue. But yeah, it's 10 millimeters is listed all over the place, and then in some places 10.2. It's a CNT diaphragm, carbon nanotube, cool. 32 ohm impedance, cool. 107 decibels per milliwatt. So it's going to take quite a bit of power to get this thing up to good levels. Aluminum shell, and it's $125 from AliExpress. Just to mention this, the original Dark Magician with the same driver, I'm quite sure, was $600 before it was taken off the market, and the XSL X1 is $50 to $60. Now, let's look at this real quick, just so I can mention it. And by the way, I'm not taking my Dark Magician OGs apart. They're like, you can't get them anymore, and I don't want to mess them up, and I'm not entirely sure I can retune them the way they were before, so that. So let's just talk about the differences in these two headphones, same driver, but differences that cause them to not ever be able to be made the same. So if we look down the bore right here, we can see that on the XSL X1, the driver is offset in the bore. You're looking at a pinhole on the side of the driver cover. If we kind of scoot up there, you can see a little bit. There's the center of the driver right up there. So we're actually listening to the edge of the driver cone here. It's going to be less treble and more bassy in general. And if we look at the Tigerism Octave, we can see that that is perfectly centered in the bore with the center of the driver. And then actually what's also interesting is it looks to me like they're actually gluing, or basically the side pinholes on the cover of the driver are not actually going through the bore, so you're not hearing any of that. Also, the front damper is inside, well, it's on the bore itself right here, this little pinhole. That's not really ideal, because if you stick these in your ears and your particular ear canals and tips end up blocking that vent, you're going to get entirely different bass than if it's just got a damper. So, and I've been playing around with the dampers on these, and that's why they look like that. This one, of course, I tried to pull the driver out. The driver is actually glued in. The front of the driver, the cover is part of the actual driver. It's not a cover. So you pull it apart, that the cover comes off, the membrane comes out, and it's dead. So I killed this one on accident, but it was not matched left to right. There was some type of a leak in this secondary chamber. So let's just talk about that real quick. Let me bounce over to my desktop. Got some pictures. There's a picture of that. Oh yeah, the Tigerism had a foam inside the bore for tuning, and I don't think there was a damper off the top of my head. Doesn't matter. It didn't sound good. This is with it's all disassembled. Whoops, sorry, let me get that over here. Yeah, there's the foam. All right, so this is all disassembled. Here is the Driver itself, you can see the membrane over here. And yeah, it all came apart when I pulled it out of the shell. But what's also interesting is this is more of an earbud style driver arrangement. So it's got little holes in the outer part of this, I don't know, driver assembly. And those little holes vent into the secondary chamber, which is up here, which is on video here. And then in the secondary chamber, you've got, you know, a damper on the back of that you can adjust. But it's a two-stage driver, which is actually the same type of arrangement as the planar drivers that I'm so used to tuning, which surprised me, let's say. And I'm very, very good at tuning two-stage drivers. So this is right up my, right in my ballpark, you know, of what I can do. So this particular set died, but there's a picture. Let's see, more pictures. All right. Just pop right over to this, which is not on video, and I'm not reviewing that. Paul Wasabi may do a review of this at some point. I think he's trying to work out what he's going to say. But the Short Bus Audio Dick Magician, which is, of course, the proper name for the Dark Magician. This is my retuned version. I included a ton of mid-bass, and I stopped it from rolling off so hard in the upper trebles. And although this graph, you might look at that and go, I don't know about that. It actually sounds pretty damn good, in my opinion. And I think Paul may back up at least some of what I'm saying. I got it to the point where I was listening to it and I thought, damn, that's a big, big jump up in quality levels from the way this was stock tuned. And it's not the same as the original Dark Magician, this guy right here, at all. It has more bass. It's like a funner version of the Dark Magician OG, essentially. It's got more treble, more bass, and approximately similar mids. And I think maybe Paul might say this too, but the mids on this thing are just killer. They're absolutely killer. So I wanted to balance that killer mids with some killer bombastic bass and some nice little trebly twinkles up there in the topper areas. And I believe I did it, so I sent that to Paul. It's a one-off set. I don't have it on me right here, and I'm not reviewing it, but that's what I retuned it like. Let's see, what's this picture? Okay, this picture is actually, okay, so this is Paul's measurement of my measurement. This is the same headphone, but that's the way I measured it, with my coupler deep insertion so that I can see the treble areas more clearly without this 8K peak that shows up on the coupler, which totally screws up my impressions of how the treble looks on graphs, so I can't tune it and blah, blah, blah. But anyways, that's my measurement of the 7 headphone. And then just to go over this, they have one of the nicest boxes and cases with this thing that I've ever seen on a headphone around 120 bucks. It's just like no question. This thing is really nice. So it's kind of like a pleather case, zipper, and then plushy interior with the super awesome, I don't know what you want to call this, little carrying stuff in here for, you could put each left and right in each one of these little pouches. They won't scratch, stuff like that. And also just to mention this, the cable is really, really nice. I got the blue one. It's a 4.4. You can get, 3.5. I think maybe there's a couple more colors. Also, my shells are the, like silvery gray, and I think they have a black one as well, just to mention. So the case is like, holy crap, they spent a lot of time on this case, it seems like, and money and stuff. And I kind of wish they had spent that on a tuner. So let's talk about the tuning. According to the internets and things, the original Dark Magician tuner left the company right after their first batch, and they were never able to make those again. That's why the Dark Magician 2 came out, and someone tuned that one was not good either. And then fast forward till now, we got the Tigerism Octave, which is the same driver. I think probably fairly the same bore arrangement. This looks to me like the exact same bore on the originals. Let's see if I can get that on here. I think so. Didn't measure them, but I think they're the same. With a different back shell thing, which doesn't make any difference. And it's like, why is this so thick and big? You know, the original Dark Magicians were thin, small, light, like super awesome. And these things are just big and chunky. And there's no particular reason. They're basically not, they're mostly not filled, or I should say they're filled with aluminum, but not the driver. So, could have done better with that, but they're okay. They fit fine. Other things, The driver is $4 in quantity. And how would I know that? It's because I found the person or the company that makes them. They're the Dongguan Chao Fan Tech Group. And you can order, I don't know, maybe like 100 of these. And they're $4 a pop. And other things to know is that I've tuned a couple of these, the XSLX ones, these ones here, and for folks. And so far, they're dying. So I don't know if it's like a case of they're not doing quality checking on the, like they're not testing the drivers out on the cheaper versions on these XSLs, and maybe some of them fail. I don't know. Or I don't know if it's just a matter of these are like really sensitive drivers. That's like, not sure. That would be unfortunate if they were really sensitive. But yeah, my one copy was screwed up. I should say, they sent me another copy of the Tigerism Octave, which Paul Wasabi has right now, which I retuned. But anyways, the driver quality control scares me right now because of the few sets I've had. They've had problems. So I gotta say it, essentially. Talk about the original sound tuning right here. There's not a lot to say. Bass, 6 out of 10. Not enough mid bass at all. Way too sub-focused. Not enough meat on the bones at all. Don't like it. Also, it doesn't show off how damn good this driver is, which is really good. Go figure. This driver is, I think, right now, my personal favorite driver. Dynamic driver on the market. I really, really like this guy. When it hits, the stage is incredibly nice. It's got incredible twinkles, OCD extension. If we go to, where is it? Let's see. Paul's graph right here. You can see like above 10K. That's only like, I don't know, 3 or 4 or 5 dB below the mid-range. And that's above 10K to 15K. That is actually amazing for a dynamic driver. It just straight up is. There's very few that can actually approach that level of replay in the high air treble areas. Moving on to mids. Oh, by the way, so if that's Paul's set, then his set has a lot more bass than mine. So I'm assuming that like the retuned versions have better bass than my impressions, but I didn't hear that. Moving on to mids, we'll give it a 7 out of 10. This driver does pull off some really, really nice mids when they're tuned right, and it's not. But 7 out of 10 is like okay. It's not wonderful. It's okay. It's good to okay. And treble, I don't care on the original one like this. This. Like, according to that, the original one was like, I don't know, what is that? 3, it's probably almost 10, I don't know, 7 decibels down from the mid-range. It's like not there. It was all mids and some sub bass. It just sounded whack, absolutely whack to me. Can't stand it in stock form. And the stage sucked. It was center focused entirely because there's not much else in the actual frequency range. Poor depth and wideness was like okay. All right, so yeah. Fit and finish, just to go over this. It's fine. It's fine. It's not wonderful. But what it is though, you can pull this back plate off real easy like. It's not glued that well at all. If you stick an X-Acto right between that seam, you can wedge this apart in a few minutes, and off you go to the races. Start modifying away. Also, the bores aren't too long, although they got that little front vent, which you can get to, and that's the other part of this. You can get to that vent with some tweezers and things, and you can replace the dampers, and that's a lot. You can do a lot with that. So cool. I like that stuff. Cable is absolutely beautiful. It's rather thick. I can't use it for mobile stuff, but like desktop usage, it's cool. Case is absolutely gorgeous, and it's probably the nicest case I own out of all my headphones. Yeah, maybe. But, I haven't actually heard the retuned version that Paul received. So I'm assuming that they actually sound better than they did. I'm assuming. And also, I told the rep that I really hated them. I just said, like, you guys really need to do better than this, and I guess they did. So at least they didn't tell me, but at least they did something of what I asked. So music playback, I'm not even gonna get into it. It doesn't matter on this thing at all. It was so far off of correct tonality and what I enjoy that it makes no sense. Maybe they do something nicely, but for the grand majority, I didn't like them. But there is another hope, and that hope is they retuned them, and they are retunable. And maybe when Paul comes out with his review, then that will give you some idea of what these can actually be for the Dick Magician. And other than that, God, man, it is a real shame that the original tuner for the Dark Magicians disappeared and is missing in action. That guy obviously had some major talents. He knew how to tune this driver correctly for the way it wants to sound. This is not a V-shaped driver. You V-shape this, which is probably the stock tuning, and it just sucks. I mean, it would be more V-shaped if the pinna gain was closer to 3K, but it's still like, this is just sucking way too much out of the mid-range for me. Way too much. So it just sucks that the original guy is no longer around. And if he hears this video, man, hit me up. You're a rock star, dude. You should probably be tuning other things. Maybe you are. But so 130 monies for what's one of the best drivers on the market that you must modify. However, I think people that maybe watch my videos and are into playing around with stuff, this is a very good prime example of something that you could do and will pay off hugely if you do it right. Just to mention this, doing it right means pulling off the back of the driver damper. Where are we here? So on video, here, let me get over here. All right. So you're going to be modifying this damper right on the back of that driver. I believe, if I remember in the stock form, there was actually 2 dampers stacked on top of each other. Just pull those off. And what you want to do is you want to allow more air into the back of the driver chamber, the secondary chamber. So that means that you're going to be doing definitely a wider diameter damper on this. And I don't remember off the top of my head what I actually put on Paul's. It might be stacked dampers, but we're talking probably in the area of 300 to 400 to 450. And you can stack those to get the proper meat on the bones in the lowers, in the low mids and high bass, and that's what this driver really wants. Also, it really does not want to peak highly in the pinna gain. It just comes across wrong. Because the driver is center focused in the bore, you're going to get all the treble this thing could possibly give you. So you can work with that a lot. You know, whether it's like say an oxygen damper on the front, or you can do foam or some combination of that. Bore restriction also does something in this. Many things. And then, of course, you have the damper inside, which you can adjust. And it's not all that hard to pull that out with some tweezers or a pin or something and replace it and play with that. So for $130, I'm going to recommend these. And the reason is because for somebody that's in the hobby and wants to get into modifying, this is a prime set to get into. It really is. And if you do it right, it's going to knock your pants right off. So hopefully Paul will do a review of the Dick Magician, and hopefully it's as good as I'm hoping it is, at least for Paul. And yeah, hopefully that's a mouthful and everyone can enjoy this disassembled Tigerism Octave. Right on, and I will talk to you later.